Welcome back. Today, we are stepping into a world that is incredibly tense, meticulously documented, and honestly, just fascinating. We're getting into a slow burn corporate mystery. In this explainer, we are looking at a specific scenario from our source material where an ordinary, almost entirely uninteresting document is actually hiding a massive systemic secret. Just imagine this scene for a second. You have a workplace that just went through a major, highly publicized reform. They went all out. They built a public memory wall, they established a formalized memory charter, and for the first time in a long time, everybody finally feels safe. The toxic culture is supposedly behind them. But then, early one morning, an alert pops up. It's an access request to the highly sensitive memory archive, and it has been approved. Now, at first glance, that seems completely fine, right? Systems process approvals all the time. But there is just one massive, glaring problem with this specific request.
And this right here is the central anomaly that kicks everything off. What happens when an approval simply has no approver? It's a literal paradox. An action occurred, a highly secure gate was opened, but the system logs show absolutely no human being turning the key. There is no name attached. So we're going to completely dissect the evidence presented in the source material today. We want to see exactly how one tiny blank field ended up unraveling a highly sophisticated corporate cover-up. We'll explore how the team actually investigates this, the very real pushback they receive from the higher-ups, and the ultimate lessons we can all take away about system permissions and accountability.
Okay, let's dive into this. We have to start with this quote from strategy lead Maya Carter because it absolutely perfectly, captures the reality of modern corporate sabotage. Maya says, "The dangerous documents never look dangerous first." You know, the most toxic office behavior doesn't usually look like some movie villain storming into a boardroom and shouting at everyone. It doesn't work like that. Instead, it looks exactly like this situation. A completely boring administrative glitch. It looks like a minor formatting error on page 12, or a slightly misrouted email, or a blank approver field. Because here's the thing, if a document looks boring, people skip reading it. Our brains are wired to ignore the mundane, and skipping the fine print is exactly what the perpetrators in this scenario were counting on. They weaponized boredom.
Section 4. The request without an approver. A quiet morning discovery.
So before the office has even fully woken up, Maya and her audit team discover this object. Like we said, it's small, it's administrative, but suddenly, to them, it feels incredibly dangerous. They realize instantly that having a record-first culture isn't just a nicely designed poster hanging on the break room wall. It's the daily, grinding discipline of actually noticing when a system is being manipulated. And this brilliantly illustrates the massive structural clash we're looking at in the material. On one side, we have the corporate messaging. All the buzzwords are there: fresh start, alignment, healing, culture reset. It's a highly polished, very reassuring narrative designed to make the executives look good. But on the exact opposite side, we have the undeniable, deeply problematic system reality, a blank approver field. And the takeaway here is huge. You simply cannot market your way out of a broken system when the raw data logs themselves are showing a gaping vulnerability. You can't PR your way out of a technical exploit.
Section 6. The official explanation, or what we should really call the soft language of cover-ups. Unsurprisingly, the moment the audit team flags this blank approval, IT operations is very quick to step in. And notice they don't panic, they don't start sweating. Instead, they try to use the absolute most powerful weapon in the corporate arsenal: boring technical dismissal. They just want this little irregularity to vanish quietly, so they come back with this exact line. They say, "It is a legacy automation artifact nobody can reproduce." Now let's break that down. This statement, which is delivered by Transformation Officer Adrian Vall, is a literal masterclass in polished evasion. By throwing out thick technical jargon like legacy automation artifact, he's intentionally giving everyone in the room an excuse to just turn their brains off and stop looking. He's framing it as a random, unexplainable ghost in the machine, a hiccup. It's an excuse designed specifically to avoid investigating the truth. But luckily for the company, Maya's team isn't buying a single word of it. So the crucial point in the narrative is how the company pushes back when Maya actually keeps digging. And this is so relatable. In toxic offices, corporate pressure rarely introduces itself as a direct threat. HR isn't going to call you in and say, "Stop looking or else." It comes to Maya in the hallway as quiet career advice. Adrian Vale pulls her aside and tells her to be careful not to turn every minor inconsistency into a full-blown crisis. It's framed as, a deep concern for the company's newfound stability. It's that incredibly subtle, deeply dangerous suggestion that good leaders know when to let things go and protect the status quo. Be a team player, Maya. It's a clear, unmistakable warning to drop the issue.
Section 9, following the digital trail and mapping the evidence.
But Maya, Sophia, and the rest of the audit team, they refuse to drop it. And here is where they get really smart. Instead of arguing about feelings or corporate optics or office politics, they build this undeniable proof map. Let's move to and see how this builds a completely clean path from the action directly back to its owner. Step 1, they identify the object. That's the access request itself. Step 2, the timestamp. They map exactly to the millisecond when the system was triggered. Step 3, the owner. They look at the server logs to figure out exactly whose credentials were in the vicinity at that time. And finally, step 4, the beneficiary. Who actually gained something from this highly classified archive being opened? This right here is exactly how you defeat a corporate cover-up. You don't yell, you break it down into a cold, hard sequence that literally cannot be argued with.
And a massive part of why this investigation actually succeeds comes down to one person, Sofia. Sofia is newer to the company, and honestly, her diligence in this explainer is just incredible to watch. Because she hasn't been there for 10 years, she hasn't yet absorbed that toxic office culture that dictates which questions are considered inconvenient or above her pay grade. She actually sits down and reads the fine print. She looks at the hidden metadata. She reads the obscure routing notes that all the senior employees have simply trained themselves to skip over to save time. She asks the basic, essential, foundational questions. Who changed it? When did it change? And who approved the change? Sometimes having fresh eyes is the only way to see what's hidden in plain sight.
And adding on to Sophia's brilliant system checks, executive assistant Nina Ross brings in the human element. This is fascinating. Nina proves an absolute golden rule of any investigation. Invisible background administrative work always leaves a foreground record. People who manipulate digital systems often think they are being total ghosts, but they forget that to pull off a digital heist, you still have to operate in the real world. You have to book conference rooms to plan it. You have to schedule secure calls. You leave physical traces. So Nina pulls calendar exports, she finds printed draft notes in the recycling, she looks at expense receipts and visitor logs. Nina's records take this isolated theoretical system glitch and place it firmly inside a much larger, undeniable pattern of human behavior. You can fake a log, but you can't fake a visitor badge swipe.
Section 13, the truth revealed. Let's translate the raw IT logs. The suspense really hits a peak here as the team enters the formal review meeting. IT audit specialist Jordan Price steps up. And he doesn't bring cinematic green code hacker visuals. He brings something much more devastating, raw, unshakable sequence data. Jordan projects the raw logs onto the screen, treating them as absolute proof. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this deliberate, minute-by-minute execution of the exploit. Look at this. Point 1, a specific service account was previously retired. Shut down. Point 2, that exact same account is mysteriously reactivated just minutes before the request is made. Point 3, the account grants a ghost approval to the memory archive. And point 4, the request routes through the system looking completely boring and routine to anyone who isn't paying close attention. When you lay it out like this, the conclusion is inescapable. This wasn't a legacy artifact. This wasn't a glitch. It was a manual, highly targeted breach.
So the logs are up on the screen, and right as the executive theater tries to spin this, right as they try to soften this massive revelation, analyst Aisha Morgan asks the room-shrinking question. She simply says, who benefits if this stays classified as harmless? Let that sink in for a second. That question cuts through all the corporate fog in an instant. It immediately stops the executives from renaming bad choices and talking about optics and synergy. It points the moral compass of the room directly at the perpetrators. Aisha's question reminds absolutely everyone sitting at that table that procedure is no longer a hiding place. The game is up.
Section 16, solution for the system. Writing lessons directly into the process.
Now, of course, the executives want a quiet, private fix. They just want to patch it, shake hands, and make the whole problem go away without any embarrassing paperwork. But the audit team absolutely demands concrete, systemic changes to ground this fix in corporate governance. Because private fixes, they leave future employees totally exposed to the exact same exploits down the line. So here is how the team ensures this specific loophole is closed permanently. First, they completely disable blank approvals in the workflow software. It's just no longer functionally possible. Second, they force the system to require explicitly named approvers with current credentials for any archive access. And third, and this is the kicker, any future attempt at a ghost approval doesn't just fail, it triggers an automatic, mandatory review by the board of directors. This isn't just fixing a bug. This is writing protection directly into the company's digital DNA.
Which brings us to a core philosophy of their new memory charter, and it's summarized perfectly once again by Maya. She says, "Do not quietly fix what can publicly teach." This is such a powerful mindset. Corporate repair has to outlive the meeting it was decided in. If you sweep a problem under the rug to save face, the company as an entity learns absolutely nothing. The culture stays stagnant. By making the fix public and by making the new process leave visible, permanent footprints, Maya ensures that the organization genuinely learns from the breach. The conflict itself leaves a permanent record of improvement for the next generation of employees. And that really leads us to the overarching lesson of this entire scenario that we've been unpacking. The record did not raise its voice. It simply waited for someone patient enough to read it. Think about that. A truly safe workplace isn't one where brave employees constantly have to play the hero, risking their careers to rescue the truth from bad actors. A genuinely safe workplace is one where the systems are built so well and so transparently that the truth doesn't need anyone's permission to appear. The records are always there. They are neutral. It just takes a culture that is actually willing to look at them without blinking.
But of course, in a complex corporate ecosystem like the one in our source material, closing one loophole usually just leads you right to another pulling thread. The audit team has successfully secured the system, making it incredibly hard for the wrong people to start over. They won this battle. But as they finish wrapping up, a brand new piece of evidence is sitting there waiting for them. What about the apology draft that was written and predated the mistake even happening? Seriously, how can you write a formal corporate apology for a glitch before the system even fails? That is a fascinating provocation and a massive, glaring red flag that we'll just have to leave you to ponder for now. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. It's been a blast. Remember to always check the fine print and keep asking the right questions.